Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. Let's talk about this particular poem, A Prayer for My Daughter, which is part of your ISC Class 11 Modern English Syllabus, the Reflections textbook. This is written by the extremely famous poet W.B. Yeats. Now, this particular poem is a poem in which the poet, during a storm, he's talking about a particular storm, he prays for the future happiness and safety of his newborn daughter. So, this is a poem which partly talks about the beauty of a father-daughter relationship and the prayer and the wish that the father has for his newborn daughter. He worries about the chaotic world, the world which is probably not very safe for the daughter. And at the same time, he wishes that the daughter grows up with a lot of grace, with a lot of kindness and inner peace, rather than having any kind of pride, vanity, or hatred for anyone else. So this is really at the heart of this particular poem. The poet further hopes that his daughter, when she grows up, will be rooted in traditional values. She wouldn't forget her roots. That's again an important aspect. And thereby he links the beauty to innocence and wisdom. I will explain the entire poem line by line, word by word, so not to worry. But before getting into it, it's always preferable to understand what this poem is talking about. The poet also believes that such qualities, that is, when you have inner beauty, you're rooted in your traditions, etc., will protect her from being very arrogant, very proud, and any kind of emotional turmoil, emotional anguish, etc. The poem blends personal affection that the father has for the daughter with Yeats' broader concern about moral decay and the loss of stability in the modern world. I would also request you to please look at the page preceding the start of the poem so that you get an idea about what the poem is all about. But this is essentially the gist of the entire poem. So now let's get into it. I'll show you an illustration that I prepared, which shows, outside the weather is not very pleasant. It has a lot of storm brewing, and the father is sitting by his newborn daughter's side, and he's praying and wishing a lot of things for her. So let's get started. A prayer for my daughter. Once more, the storm is howling. Please keep your notebook and pen with you so that you can take down the notes. And half hid under this cradle hood and coverlid, my child sleeps on. So once more the storm is howling. Now the poet says that once again there is a violent storm which is raging outside, which is kind of creating havoc outside. The word howling here means that the wind is making a very loud, very wild, very animal-like sound. And that sets a very dark and a very uneasy kind of a mood to the poem, right in the first sentence itself. Also, please note down the poetic device. The storm is howling. You howl, you either talk about a child which is howling or an animal which is howling. So the storm has been personified as a living creature. Also, there is a sense here of half hid, a sense of alliteration. And this is creating an image of a very violent kind of a very stormy kind of a scene. At the same time, under this cradle hood and coverlid, my child sleeps on. So his baby daughter is sleeping peacefully beneath the cradle's hood and a blanket. Coverlid means a blanket. A blanket, and the calmness that this particular line conveys, my child sleeps on. The calmness that this particular line conveys is in sharp contrast to the first line, which conveys the wildness of the storm. So the poetic device of contrast, the juxtaposition of the peaceful sleeping child with that of the violent storm. There is the imagery, the very gentle domestic kind of image of a child sleeping. And so there is no obstacle but Gregory's wood and one bare hill. Now here you need to note down a few things. Now he's meaning to say that there is hardly anything, any physical object which is there between the poet's house and the sea, except a small forest which is known as Gregory's Wood. I'll explain to you why it is called Gregory's Wood, right? And there is one bare hill, which means that there is a treeless hill. There is one lonely hill which does not have any trees. It is completely bare. So basically to say that this gives them no protection from the storm because there is no physical object that will provide them protection from the storm. Now, as far as Gregory's Wood is concerned, now that is a real place. It is a small woodland, a forest area near the home of W.B. Yeats in Ireland. Okay, it belongs. Why does it get its name? Because it belongs to Lady Augusta, Lady A-U-G Augusta Gregory. So that's how the name comes. Who was a close friend of Yeats. She was also some kind of a collaborator in his poetry. And she owned a nearby estate called Coole Park, C-O-O-L-E, Coole Park. And it was called Gregory Wood by the locals because it belonged to Gregory, Lady Gregory. Okay, so that's how the name comes. So just a piece of information. So in the poem, it basically serves two purposes. The reference to Gregory's Wood. One, of course, it's the literal, the actual forest area, which is close to Yeats's house. Number two, it's also symbolic because it represents some kind of a small barrier which protects his child and the child's innocence from the storm, which represents the chaotic and the dangerous world outside. So if you get this particular stanza, you need to talk about it both at the literal level, also at the metaphorical, symbolic level, that the storm is representing the dangerous storm, and this Gregory's Wood is a small kind of a barrier which kind of may just about protect his child and the innocence of the child from the dangerous world outside. So the symbolism as a poetic device, and of course the imagery, whereby the haystack and roof leveling wind bred on the Atlantic can be stayed. So the wind which is born, bred on the Atlantic means that this particular, just like you have the cyclones which are born in the Bay of Bengal, right? So just like that, just now, in fact, October, November, December are the time when there are a lot of cyclones which form in the Bay of Bengal and they come and hit anywhere between Odisha and the Tamil Nadu coast near Chennai. So this one is born on the Atlantic Ocean, and it is so powerful. This particular wind is so powerful that it can blow off the roofs. Okay, the roof leveling wind means it will level off the roof. The roof will come and fall into the ground, and also they scatter the haystacks. Haystacks is like dry grass, and only the small wood and the hill can slightly hold it back. Now, here there is a bit of a hyperbole, the exaggeration in the roof leveling wind, because the wind has to be so powerful to show great force. So there is a sense of exaggeration, personification. The wind seems to be alive, born on the Atlantic, bred on the Atlantic means, it's almost like being personified out there. And for an hour, I have walked and stayed, and I have walked and prayed. So the poet has been walking restlessly and praying for an hour, and because he's very troubled by the fearful thoughts, because of the great gloom that is in my mind, because he feels a great deal of sadness and worry. He's very worried, he's very anxious, because the outer storm, the storm which is brewing outside his house, it kind of reflects the inner storm of his thoughts. Even in his mind, he's actually extremely worried. So the metaphor of the storm outside mirroring the anxiety and the gloom inside his mind. So the mood of the entire poem, the tone of the first stanza is very gloomy and very anxious. So the overall idea of the stanza, I hope you have got that basically the poet is describing a very fierce storm which is outside his house while his baby daughter is sleeping peacefully, and the storm is representative of the troubled, dangerous world outside which is full of chaos and moral decay. And his prayer as a father is to say that he's concerned about his child's future safety in such a world. Let's come to stanza number 2. I have walked and prayed for this young child an hour. Now the poet repeats that he has been walking because, he has already said that and he's repeating it. So it shows his faith in the power of prayer. So he says that I walked and prayed for this young child an hour. that he has been walking and praying for an hour for his newborn daughter. And the word young child, the phrase young child shows both affection for the child. It also tells us that the child is very vulnerable and the father is aware of that vulnerability, right? So the prayer in that sense expresses a sense of worry of a father for the child's future. So there is a sense of the poetic device of repetition. And heard the sea wind scream upon the path. The moment you hear wind screaming, this is what? This is personification. So he hears the fierce wind coming from the sea, howling violently, what we saw in the first line, howling, and against the tower. Now, what can this be the tower? Probably this is the tower of his home in Ireland. The word scream gives the wind a very human-like, a very animal-like, a very living creature-like voice and that kind of a feeling. And under the arches of the bridge and scream, the poet hears the same wind which is howling even under the arches of the bridge. So the sound seems to be echoing everywhere. So it's almost like, getting very amplified kind of a sound. The repetition of scream increases the sense of the intensity, right? Because he's talking about the scream above the tower, upon the tower, and scream again in the third line. So he's repeated the word scream, and that kind of increases the intensity of that particular feeling. So there is the poetic device of repetition. Personification against the wind, again the wind taking on different kind of verbs which have been allotted to it, adjectives and verbs which have been allotted to it. In the elms above the flooded stream. Now the tall elm trees, this is the name of a tree, near a swollen river. The flooded stream means that the river is full of water because of probably heavy rainfall. They are all shaking in the storm and the wind screams through the branches of the elm trees. Now, elm trees, let me just tell you, they are large, tall trees with very broad leaves, and they form a very umbrella-like shape. So in that sense, they look very graceful. And in poetry, in English and Irish poetry, and in literature, the elm trees are generally used to symbolize strength. They are used to symbolize stability. And here, W.B. Yeats has used them to show that nature is very disturbed by the storm. That these kind of graceful trees are also extremely disturbed by the storm. The strong trees, the elm trees, which are known to convey stability, even they are kind of, in turmoil as a result of this. So again, a case of the poetic device of imagery out here. Imagining in excited reverie. Now he's turning. So far, he was talking about the outside atmosphere. Now he's turning a little inside. So he's inside his own mind. In his reverie. Reverie means a very thoughtful, a very dreamy kind of a state of mind. A thoughtful frame of mind. A thoughtful frame of mind. He imagines the future. So now he is beginning to think about the future. And that's what the rest of the poem will largely be about. Excited. Excited means that he's, in a state of emotionally, he's feeling very high at this point in time. It could be because he's very restless. It could also be because he's a little scared and fearful. So the reverie is a metaphor to show that his imagination now has become like a dream, right? And the tone, you realize, is now becoming a little uneasy. That the future years had come. So he's now beginning to imagine about the future. So he imagines that the future itself has arrived before him, as though time, it's as if the time has come a little forward. It has fast forward and come before, and he can already see what lies ahead for his daughter. So he can imagine that this is the kind of world that she will be living in. So it's like time has got fast forwarded. Dancing to a frenzied drum. Dancing to a frenzied drum means he imagines that the future years dancing wildly to the beat of a very violent kind of a drum. And the phrase dancing to a frenzied drum, the moment you hear it, you can imagine a lot of energy, because drum is like, ta, 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 that kind of, there's a lot of energy. Frenzy, the word also conveys energy. Dancing, again, for all of you who know what dance is, it would mean a lot of energy. So the sentence itself has a lot of energy, right? So the phrase conveys energy, it conveys a sense of disorder, it also conveys a sense of loss of control. So it's like a modern world which is kind of going a little crazy. Uh, Frenzy drum is a metaphor which stands for the madness, the craziness, the sense of unrest, and the destructive energy of the of the world at this point in time. Dancing and drum alliteration, if you can look at it in the context of a single sentence. Out of the murderous innocence of the sea. Now, what does it say? Now, a word like murder immediately conveys a sense of darkness, a sense of extreme unease. So the sea is now being spoken about. The sea is described both as innocent, initially, that it is basically innocent, right? But also talking about, so this is like, a extreme case of an oxymoron, because something which is innocent, you will not also talk about it as being murderous, right? And something which is murderous cannot be innocent. So this is a case of a poetic device called oxymoron, which has been used. So murderous means destructive, innocent means something which is very natural and pure. So the sea is giving birth to the storm, and it symbolizes the power of nature and the unpredictable nature of the unpredictable character of nature. So this oxymoron, murderous innocence, it suggests that even innocent forces can cause harm. Now, this is a very deep sentence, that someone you may actually think that he's my friend, very innocent, but even that innocent person can actually cause extreme harm under some circumstances. So the sea, which is normally very innocent and very normal, it can also give rise to an destructive storm. So that is what this particular line means. So these lines are very important when he started thinking about the future. So the overall meaning of the second stanza is that while he's praying for his sleeping baby, he listens to the violent sea wind and begins to imagine the future. And he's in a dreamlike state. He sees those future years approaching him like dancers, moving in a very wild manner to a crazy drum beat. And they are the symbols of destructive times, chaotic times. And the last phrase, murderous innocence of the sea, very important. It captures his fear of the future, which is destructive. This stanza basically, in a nutshell, turns the storm which is outside his house into the vision of a troubled future. That's what you need to write. Please note this down. And he fears that that's the kind of world his daughter is going to grow up into. And that's why he's feeling extremely worried about her vulnerability. I hope this is clear. See, I'm loading with you with a lot of information because this is the way literature is meant to be studied. You need to, if you write all that I'm telling you in a 5-mark or a 10-mark question, there is no way the examiner can cut even half a mark from your answer. And keep quoting from the poem. Third stanza. May she be granted beauty and yet not beauty to make a stranger's eye distraught, right? So the poet now is beginning with the prayer. May she, may you do well in the examination. May you have a safe trip. We say that because this is it is in the form of a prayer. It is in the form of a wish that you make for someone. Here the father is making a wish for his daughter. May she be granted beauty. That he wishes that she should have beauty and yet not. But at the same time, he's adding this clause. But at the same time, she should not have too much of beauty. Too much of beauty she should not have. So it is in the form of a prayer, which is also called apostrophe. And the tone is very loving. It is very protective. It's also very cautious, right? And beauty to make a stranger's eye distraught. So what is he saying? That yet she should not be so beautiful that it makes strangers distraught. Means strangers feeling disturbed or obsessive or overexcited by her looks. So excessive beauty he feels can attract very unhealthy kind of attention in the world. So that's what he's talking about. On hers before a looking glass. While it can kind of influence someone outside, it can also influence his own daughter. He also prays that his daughter should not become vain or proud about her own beauty. She should not become a vain kind of a person or feeling extremely arrogant or proud when she looks at herself in the looking glass, because he also wishes that she should be granted beauty. But these are the two conditions he kind of wishes for at the same time. Looking glass means essentially a mirror. So the symbolism of the looking glass or the mirror is kind of, it's symbolic of vanity or narcissism or self-obsession. Being made beautiful overmuch. He says those who are too beautiful, overmuch means excessive, okay, have often become very proud or very self-centered, selfish, very arrogant kind of people. Consider beauty is sufficient, and such people who think like that, they also think that beauty alone is enough in life. You don't need anything, just having a beautiful face and body is enough. They see that having continued to have that beautiful face as the only goal or purpose in life. And Yeats definitely disapproves of this kind of an approach. That's why he's wishing and praying that his daughter should not be someone like that. So the beauty is an end for such people. Lose natural kindness. So he says that people who rely too much on outer beauty often lose out on their natural kindness. So he's saying that he would want his daughter to be naturally kind and not be a mean, rude, arrogant kind of a person. So he sees that that should be the real purpose, that people who have too much of outer beauty often lose out on their natural kindness, their compassion, their sense of gentleness. That's what they lose out on. And therefore he says and maybe the heart revealing intimacy, that Yeats means that the emotional closeness and sincerity that comes from a kind heart, the ability to truly connect with others. Heart revealing intimacy means genuine emotional warmth that you may feel for another human being or another living creature, right? So the metaphor heart revealing, it symbolizes openness, it symbolizes honesty and sincerity in relationships, that chooses right and never find a friend. So because of pride, because of arrogance, because of vanity, such people may fail to find any true friends, because they're too much in love with themselves. So they can never be a giving kind of person. They can never be kind. So they may end up never finding a true friend, because their obsession with their own self-beauty, with their own beauty, it blocks any kind of emotional investment in friendships. They are not invested. They don't invest in friendships and relationships, as a result of which they may never find a friend. So the irony is that they may be very beautiful to look at. They may be extremely charming, but because they're also vain, as a result, they will end up being very lonely kind of people. So Yeats is praying that his daughter, though beautiful, but he doesn't want her to be excessively beautiful, because of the reasons I mentioned, that he fears that it will lead to vanity and pride and emotionally being very shallow. Instead of that, he would want her to be truly happy by being kind, by being modest, by being emotionally honest, and not just by outward appearance. So basically, this stanza is very important, not for the sake of his prayer for his daughter, because it shows the poet's very balanced view of beauty. And the fact that he values the virtues that he values are so very important. And this is something which I always talk about in many of my videos, the importance of kindness, that you should not body shame anyone. You should not age shame anyone. You should not shame anyone on the basis of their color, on the basis of their looks, on the basis of their height, weight, whatever, right? So these are things. So kindness is a very, very, very powerful virtue to have. And I would want all you people, because the world has become such a toxic place. So if you're also going to add to that toxicity, that's not going to help, right? So similarly, Yeats, basically what he's talking about is that beauty is fine only when it is also combined with inner goodness and kindness. That is what is important. I'm recording this video a couple of days after Diwali, but I can still hear firecrackers outside. So I hope It is not getting recorded, and I hope it doesn't disturb you. I'm sorry if it does. Okay. Now, let's move to the fourth stanza. Helen, being chosen, found life flat and dull. Yeats is referring to the Helen of Troy. You know, Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy. So she was considered the most beautiful woman in Greek mythology. Okay. And her beauty led to the Trojan War. Now, the phrase being chosen means that she was admired. Being chosen means that she was admired and desired by many men. She was the chosen one basically because of her beauty. But despite that, she found life flat and dull. Means that, she found it very boring. She found it very unsatisfying. So this is the poetic device of allusion which has been done to Helen of Troy from Greek mythology, and the fact that it is very ironic that she was much sought after, she was chosen, yet she found life very boring and unsatisfying, basically, and later had much trouble from a fool. Later on in the Greek mythological story, Helen suffered because of her foolish lover called Paris, who was a prince of Troy, whose actions led to war and destruction. And the fool is a reference to that prince called Paris. Again, a case of illusion. While that great queen that rose out of the spray, this line is referring to Venus. Okay, this line is referring to Venus, whose other name is also Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love and beauty, who, according to mythology, was born from the sea foam. She was born from the sea foam. Okay, the spray word means sea foam, and rose from the spray is a very poetic image of her mythical birth. Because obviously people don't are not born from the sea foam, right? Sea foam is when the waves come there. There is a bit of a foam because of the salty nature of the sea. So this is an allusion this time to Venus, the Roman goddess of beauty. Now, Venus stands for perfect physical beauty and the power of attraction. Rose from the spray is a case of imagery because it paints a very beautiful picture of the sea. Being fatherless could have her way. Now, since Venus had no father because she was born from sea foam, she was free to do whatever she wished because she was independent. She was not accountable or answerable to anyone. Yet the poet hints that this freedom did not lead to any kind of good choices or wisdom. So basically, he's saying that the importance of a father, and I, as a father, can relate to this, but I think daughters are beautiful, right? They are the best gift any parent can have. I'm not saying sons are not good. I'm myself a son, but daughters are really beautiful. It's a very beautiful relationship that you have with a daughter. So, so if you are a daughter listening to this, do ensure that your relationship with your father and mother is absolutely beautiful, right? So the poet hints that this freedom that Venus had did not really lead to, her making wise choices. So total freedom does not bring happiness is the message of this particular line. Being fatherless could have her way. She could have had her way because she was fatherless, yet chose a bandy-legged smith for man. But despite her being, beautiful and all that, she, the goddess of beauty, she married someone called Vulcan. Okay, Vulcan, who is a lame, ugly blacksmith god. Bandy-legged means someone whose legs are not okay, completely okay. And Yeats finds, W. Yeats finds irony in this, that the most beautiful woman chose a physically deformed man. Not to say, this is not meant to be. This is in 2025. Obviously, this does not sound very politically correct. So you have to read it in the context that this was written at a particular time in history. Okay. So the allusion is to Vulcan, who is the god of fire and also metalwork. God of fire and metalwork. Okay. It is certain that fine women eat. Now, the poet now makes a very general statement. He means that many beautiful women. Fine women means many beautiful women. Fine here is referring to beauty. So many beautiful women often behave very foolishly in matters of love, in matters of life. So he's making a very broad and a very generic comment out here, after giving the two examples of Helen and Venus. A crazy salad with their meat. A crazy salad is a metaphor. Crazy salad represents very foolish or unbalanced ideas or emotions that come mixed with the sensible part of life. The meat is referring to life. Crazy salad is the bad, horrible, foolish, idiotic decisions that some of them take. So he's saying that beautiful women often mix reason with madness, with craziness or irrational choices, whereby the horn of plenty is undone. Now, the horn of plenty is a mythological symbol of abundance, blessing, and happiness. So, what the poet is saying is that foolishness or feeling very proud often destroys that abundance, of being very good. So, beauty mixed with madness can ruin the blessings of life, is what is being conveyed out here in the last two sentences, right? So, basically, this particular stanza talking about too much of beauty can lead to foolishness, wrong decisions that lead to unhappiness. He gives two examples of Helen of Troy from Greek mythology and Venus from Roman mythology, both of them extremely beautiful, but both of them ended up eating a crazy salad with their meat, means they did not take the right decisions in their life. So basically, he's telling his daughter, as far as his daughter is concerned, he wishes and prays that she should have wisdom, self-control, balance, and he believes that they are much more important qualities than, absolutely dazzling kind of beauty. There is also some critics believe, when I was doing my research, some critics believe that this is also probably some kind of an indirect reference to a lady called Maud Gonne, who W.B. Yeats was in love with, but she ended up marrying someone else, which is probably why he uses a strong word like fool. So maybe he's kind of taking a pot shot, linking it to his own personal life. This is believed by some critics. This is not really relevant from an examination point of view. I'm just telling you, right? Let's move to stanza number 5. This is going to be a long video, so please bear with me because I need to do it properly. And otherwise, I will not be doing an honest job. I need to do it properly because it's a complicated poem. Now, let's come to the 5th stanza. In courtesy, I would have her chiefly learn. So he now says that above all things, he wishes his daughter to be courteous, that she should learn courtesy, politeness, being gentle, being considerate, being kind, and chiefly learned. Chiefly learned means most of all taught or mainly trained in, being courteous, in being humble, in humility, right? Hearts are not had as a gift, but hearts are earned. Very important sentence. He says that love and affection cannot be demanded from anybody. I cannot go and tell anyone that you need to be loving and kind towards me. These are not demanded, but they are earned, right? You must earn another person's heart through doing good things yourself. And that's how you earn respect. That's how you earn other people's kindness. By those that are not entirely beautiful. Those who are not blessed with great physical beauty often win love. Not everybody is very beautiful, but sometimes such people are extremely kind and generous and polite and do the right things, do good things to people. And such people are often more popular than people who are extremely beautiful. So Yeats believes that such people are more likely to build deep, lasting kind of friendship bonds. Yet many that have played the fool. So he says that he wants that many people who have acted foolishly becoming vain. Now here is not talking about the husband. He's saying in terms of, many people end up behaving in a very foolish way, unwise way, careless way, because they are in love or in different kind of friendships or relationships. Played the fool is a common phrase to say, behaving in a stupid kind of manner. For beauty's very self has charm made wise. Now this is an important line, because he says that though beauty can lead some people to foolishness, others become wise through the charm of beauty itself. They learn to appreciate beauty deeply and thoughtfully. Now this is therefore an important line, because he's kind of talking slightly differently from what he has been saying so far. That he says that while beauty can lead some people to do foolish things, there can also be some beautiful people who can become wise through the charm of beauty itself, because they learn to appreciate beauty in a very deep kind of manner. And many a poor man that has roved, that he's referring to men who have wandered or searched widely, moved in a very, wide manner, seeking love or seeking happiness, loved and thought himself beloved. Such men may have believed that they have truly loved, but perhaps they were mistaken because it was only an illusion. They were under the impression that they thought, that they were loved, but that was just a illusion. That was just a misinterpretation, or that's what they misunderstood, right? From a glad kindness cannot take his eyes. So here the poet is describing a man who is, completely enchanted by kindness, captivated by kindness, not beauty. So glad kindness, this particular phrase, glad kindness means genuine warmth of the soul, of the heart, right? Goodness of heart. The poet is basically saying that true love arises from the inner sweetness and sincerity, right? So it's coming back to the same thing that, if your inner beauty is what really matters. Cannot take his eyes means deeply admiring. You look at someone, now that person may not be the most beautiful person, but there is goodness in that person's heart and you fall in love with that person. So overall, this particular stanza, the fifth stanza, is saying that his daughter should learn courtesy, his daughter should learn inner goodness, and he also believes that real love is earned through character. And while beauty can lead to foolishness, charm combined with modesty, beauty and charm combined with modesty and kindness can bring true wisdom and affection. So basically, this particular stanza is showing the poet's belief in humility, in gentleness, as he believes they are the foundations for a happy and meaningful life. Let's come. We have finished half the poem. Let's come to stanza number 6. May she become a flourishing hidden tree. So Yeats wishes his daughter to grow strong, healthy, and quietly like a tree that flourishes away from attention. Who is hidden. The tree doesn't have to be a look at me kind of a thing. It can be flourishing, but it need not be in public view at all. That's why they say, no, don't tell anyone everything to everyone. Certain things need not be told unless they are completed, right? Hidden suggests modesty. It suggests inner strength and protection from the harshness of the world. So the daughter here, now this is a metaphor. The daughter is being compared to a flourishing hidden tree, symbolizing growth, symbolizing humility, symbolizing stability at the same time. And the tone is, as you realize, very, very protective. That all her thoughts may like the linnet be. Now he hopes that her thoughts will be free, they will be joyful like a linnet. Now what is a linnet? A linnet is a small songbird, which sings songs. So this is a reference to another element of nature. We have seen the comparison to the tree, and this is now being compared like to the linnet, which is a bird. So there is, the auditory imagery, because linnet is known for its songs, and have no business but dispensing round. Now her thoughts should have no other purpose than spreading goodness and joy. That's all her thoughts should be. Being good and spreading joy and good cheer. Dispensing around. Dispense, the word, right? We have done a lot in the prepositions. And please ensure that if you are weak in grammar, Grammatically Yours is available on Amazon. I believe it is the best grammar book for ICSE and ISC students. It has phrasal verbs, prepositions, all the rules of transformation with lots of examples. Join the sentences for class 9 and 10 students. Tenses and verbs, which is again common to 9, 10, 11, 12. So please buy it. There are 20 tests for ICSE, 20 tests for ISC. So please test yourself. It's a book definitely worth owning. So please order your copy from Amazon right away. Because I remember dispense was a preposition that I taught, dispense with, right? We said dispose of and dispense with. Anyway, so dispensing round means sharing generously. So here there's also personification, that the thoughts are being personified almost as if it's a living creature. Their magnanimities of sound. Now her thoughts are generous and noble qualities. Magnanimities, you say magnanimous means being very generous. are expressed in very joyful or beautiful sound like singing or speaking kindly. Magnanimous means to give something very generously, right? Nor but in merriment begin a chase. She should only engage, his daughter should only engage in playful pursuits. Chase means, and merriment means something very playful, something very joyful. Begin a chase out of joy, not because of any aggression or because of any hatred or malice. Malice spelling is Malice. Hatred or malice towards anyone, but only in joy that she should chase someone, right? Uh, Nor but in merriment a quarrel. Now here again the same thing has been repeated, which means that similarly any quarrels that she has should only be very playful and very light-hearted, nothing cruel, nothing serious, right? So basically Yeats is wishing his daughter to live with a lot of innocence and joy, right? Oh, may she live like some green laurel, rooted in one dear perpetual place. So he's saying that she should kind of live a long, flourishing life like a green laurel, which is evergreen and symbolizes victory, honor, and stability. Laurel means accolades, means generally laurel we say it in terms of any kind of accolades. Oh, he won a lot of laurels on the battlefield. But here, laurel is used in a slightly different sense. It is talking about a tree which has very glossy kind of leaves, right? So that's what is being talked about. So the daughter is being compared to a laurel tree. Earlier we were she's compared to a linnet. Now she's being compared to a laurel tree, which is symbolic of growth and virtue, right? Rooted in one dear perpetual place. So he wishes her life, perpetual place. Rooted means he wishes for her to be very stable, like a tree which is firmly rooted to its place as if it is its home, right? So similarly, perpetual means permanent. Perpetual place means permanence, continuity, security, and sense of attachment to home and family. So he wants his daughter to be very attached, emotionally attached to her home, to her family. Let's move to the seventh stanza. So here the important thing is the comparison to the laurel and the linnet song. Seventh stanza. My mind, because the minds that I have loved. The poet begins by reflecting on himself. Now he's talking about himself. So he says that my mind has been shaped by the minds that I have loved. The people I have loved. It could be friends, it could be poets, it could be thinkers, anyone in the case of Yeats. Maybe even Maud Gonne, who he was in love with. He has learned from their way of thinking and feeling because of the minds that I have loved. This sort of beauty that I have approved. So he refers to the kind of beauty that he admired. It could be intellectual, it could be, different kinds of beauty. But what is important is that he's approved of their kind of beauty. Prosper but little has dried up of late. Means that those ideals and people have not prospered and they have not really led to peace or fulfillment, not always, right? So means that though he may have made some mistakes. Dried up means that his enthusiasm for such beauty has faded. Now he finds it very empty, right? Prosper but little has dried up. Now it finds it very empty. Dried up means a loss of, basic life. Yet knows that to be choked with hate. But despite him feeling a little disappointed, he still knows one major truth, that being choked with hatred or filled with any kind of bitterness or resentment is something which is not to be done. It is one of the curses of life. It is not something very good to happen in anyone's life. So metaphor of choked with hate is basically comparing hatred to something that suffocates you, chokes you, right? May well be of all evil chances chief. So he believes that hatred is the greatest of all evils, more destructive than any misfortune, and the person who is consumed by hatred can never ever find peace. So that's what he's conveying out here. If there is no hatred in a mind, so he is basically saying that if the mind is free from hate, if it is instead filled with love, peace, joy, calmness, then nothing outside can actually disturb it or hurt it or harm it in any way. Assault and battery of the wind. Now he's coming back to the wind, right? So the phrase describes the violent attack of this storm. What I told you at the beginning, that it is actually symbolic of the violence that could take place in life itself. So assault and battery, these are very legal terms which you use in courts, in criminal cases. Like assault and battery is a legal term for physical assault or physical attack. And here it is being used by the poet to show that the wind is kind of assaulting, everything. It's like the battery, it is completely battering. Battery word comes from batter. It's completely battering everything that is coming in its way. Can never tear the linnet from the leaf. Now, this is very important, that if the mind is pure and loving, no storm. Now, here it's talking about the metaphor, the suffering, can tear away the linnet. Linnet is a symbol of joy. It's a symbol of innocence. It's a symbol of peace from its leaf, right? Leaf is a symbol of life or stability. So it can never take away the linnet from the leaf. So basically to say that even while there is a storm in the entire world, a pure heart remains unshaken like the linnet on its leaf. So that's what it is being conveyed out here, that he praying that the daughter should have a calm, a very loving and a hate-free mind, so that no external storm can harm her spirit. So basically this stanza, 7th stanza, is very beautifully connecting with the opening stanza of this particular poem. Let's come to stanza number 8. An intellectual hatred is the worst. Now, the poet declares that hatred which is born out of intellect, there are some people who are intellectuals who also feel very cold and very proud of themselves, right? Very self-righteous, and they hate and they look down upon themselves. They're very condescending kind of people. He believes that hatred which is born out of intellect is actually very, very dangerous. Is very dangerous because it comes from people who are actually insecure. It comes from people who believe that their ideas make them superior to other people, right? So this particular phrase, intellectual hatred, again, hatred ko intellectual ke saath add karna, it seems like an oxymoron, right? It combines mind, intellect, which is mind, with hatred, which is an emotion, which are two opposites, right? So let her think opinions are accursed. So he's saying that he wishes that his daughter will avoid the strong and very stubborn opinions and see them as harmful, see them as cursed. Accursed is referring to cursed or something which is harmful. And the poet values open-mindedness and humility more than argumentative intellect, right? So that's what he prefers. And he wants her to think like that. Have I not seen the loveliest woman born? So he's now again indirectly perhaps referring to Maud Gonne, the beautiful woman he once loved. She was, from what we know from my research, is that she was politically a very, headstrong kind of a person. And he, in his eyes, in his opinion, her strong opinions overshadowed her beauty and her goodness. That's what he believes, that, she was the loveliest woman born. Have I not seen? So that is why it believed that it's a reference to Maud Gonne. Out of the mouth of Plenty's horn. So Plenty's horn is a mythical horn which is symbolizing abundance and blessings. And the poet believes that she was born with many gifts like beauty, grace, and fortune. Because of her opinionated mind. Yet, because of her very rigid and very stubborn opinions, especially her political opinions, they destroyed her peace and happiness. So that's what these are references most likely to Maud Gonne. So you can refer to this in your answers if you get this for a 5 or 10 mark question, right? Because it will show that you have researched well, right? Destroyed her peace and happiness. Barter that horn in every good. So he's saying barter means to trade away, when you exchange one good for another good without using any kind of currency. So he's saying that, trade it away. So he says, give up, she gave up her natural gifts and blessings because of her obstinate nature, because of her various very strong political kind of thoughts, So it's like wasting the gifts given by life. By quiet natures understood. So calm people, humble people, quiet natures means people who are calm and humble by nature. They can understand and preserve life's blessings, which she lost. For an old bellows full of angry wind. A bellows is a tool which is used to blow air into a fire, to make the fire grow stronger. So here it is a symbol for empty talk or loud anger, negative kind of emotions. So W.B. Yeats believes that she traded real goodness for empty rage or very noisy kind of pointless arguments. All wind, all wind, no substance. And this is asked, putting it as a question mark. So the tone is a little, he's also obviously a little disillusioned, but it's also being sarcastic. That for an old bellows full of angry wind, there was only anger. There was not kindness or gentility. So through the example of Maud Gonne, the poet is showing how a person who was blessed with beauty, she destroyed her inner peace by clinging on to anger and very rigid kind of opinions. So he is hoping that his daughter, on the contrary, will stay gentle, she'll stay humble, and she will value, genuine goodness over any kind of loud behavior. So the stanza, this 8th stanza, is reinforcing W.B. Yeats' broader message that a pure, kind mind and heart are the greatest blessings of life. I really resonate with this viewpoint. Let's come to the last 2 stanzas. Considering that all hatred driven hence. So he's saying that now he's beginning with some kind of a reflection that if all hatred is driven away, it is driven away, removed from the heart, then true peace can begin. Hence means, from here or away from oneself, then true peace can begin. The soul recovers radical innocence, so that when hatred is gone, the soul will recover the radical innocence, means its original, natural gentleness, innocence, purity, right? The goodness that one has been born, because when one is born, you are born with a lot of goodness. And later on, as we keep getting influenced by the world outside, we keep getting corrupted by all kinds of bad influences. Isn't that so? Right? So the goodness one is born with, which is unspoiled by any kind of pride or arrogance or hatred or malice, right? So radical innocence is a metaphor, which is like moral rebirth, like, almost as if you are returning to the purity of childhood, and learns at last that it is self-delighting. So the purified soul realizes that it can find joy within oneself, within itself. It does not depend on anyone else or any kind of external things for happiness. So that's what is being conveyed, and learns at last that it is self-delighting, right? Self-appeasing, self-affrighting. So the soul is capable of, appeasing means, calming oneself. Affrighting means frightening oneself. So it holds, the soul is holding within itself both happiness and peace, as well as fear and anxiety. So what Yeats is trying to convey, just listen to this carefully, a little complicated, that the happiness of a soul or the turmoil that a soul goes through, it depends on its own state. The word self is conveying that. It depends on itself. It does not depend on outside events. Like we say, just to kind of, make it even more simple. Your peace of mind is not really dependent on someone speaking harshly to you. It depends also largely on how you react to that. If you tell your mind that what that person says about me, before me or behind my back, does not matter, then you will be at peace with yourself. But if you allow your mind to get affected negatively, that means that person has managed to get under your skin. He has managed to upset you. He has managed to do something to, completely put you in a state of turmoil, right? Emotional turmoil. So, and that its own sweet will is heaven's will. So W.B. Yeats believes that when the soul is very pure, very innocent, its sweet will means natural good desires are in harmony with God's will or divine order. There is no conflict between human goodness and heavenly goodness, right? Its own sweet will is what even the gods will desire. Like you are in harmony, you are in agreement with what the gods also will desire. Such a very, it's a very big thought to say, so there is a symbolism, metaphor. Heaven's will is essentially divine purpose. She can, though every face should scowl. So he says, even if the whole world turns hostile against her, even if the entire world, scowl means frown, right? to make a face in a negative and an ugly kind of manner, right? Frown is W. Okay, will frown at her, she will still not lose her peace because it will depend on her own mind and soul. And every windy quarter howl. So even if every direction, quarter means every direction, in every windy direction, if of the wind is howling, even if the whole world is stormy and chaotic, she will remain steady. So this connects again to the opening stanza of this particular poem. Or every bellows burst. Now again, the word bellows has been repeated. Even if every bellows explodes, she will still be happy and peaceful because her soul is very pure, is very kind, is very self-sufficient and self-satisfied. So basically in this stanza, Yeats is completing his prayer for his daughter's inner peace. He wants that her, the person's heart should be free from hatred. It should be innocent. It should regain its original innocence, so that, no matter what happens around her, she will still be morally pure and happy. Let's come to the final stanza of this particular poem. And may her bridegroom bring her to a house. So he's now talking about her marriage. So he prays that her future husband, his daughter's future husband, will take her to a good home, one that is peaceful, one that is emotionally secure. And a house here means both a physical house, in terms of a physical building, a physical house. It also means a stable family life. So the house symbolizes both, where all is accustomed ceremonious. So he wishes that her married life. So he's talking about a newborn child and he's gone directly to her marriage. He wishes her married life to be filled with, good, respectful traditions, ceremonies, etc. Accustomed means something which is familiar, right? Ceremonious means something which is proper, full of dignity, right? For arrogance and hatred are the wares, because he says that this ideal home will be in contrast to the outside world, where the storm is symbolizing the hatred and the arrogance, right? Wares means the kind of things that people do. People sell, people trade, but here the kind of things that people do, like, things like arrogance, things like, being rude, etc., hatred, etc., peddled in the thoroughfares. Thoroughfares is referring to the public places, the busy public places where arrogance and hatred are actually sold. That's what you get outside. The world is arrogant, the world is rude, the world is full of hatred. And Yeats is suggesting that society has become very corrupt and noisy, full of conflict, full of hatred and selfishness, etc. How but in custom and in ceremony? And now he's asking a rhetorical question. Now he's here asking a rhetorical question, that how else except through custom and ceremony can we preserve the beauty and the goodness? That only through this custom we can actually preserve the goodness. So he believes that social order, tradition and manners protect the innocence from the chaos. So this is a rhetorical question which has been asked here. Are innocence and beauty born? So he believes that true innocence and beauty, they can grow only when there is an environment of culture, of respect, of order, not in a case where there is complete wildness and chaos, right? And hatred. Ceremonies is a name for the rich horn. So Yeats explains his symbol. Ceremony is like the horn of plenty, the mythical horn that overflows with blessings, and a life with dignity, which is what is being conveyed by ceremony. Manners and culture is abundant with goodness, right? So that's what he's using the metaphor of the rich horn, which is a symbol of abundance out here, and custom for the spreading laurel tree. So again, he's coming back to the earlier reference. So he's saying custom is compared to a spreading laurel tree, which is strong, stable, evergreen, enduring, and it symbolizes growth. It symbolizes tradition apart from stability. So Yeats is suggesting that rooted customs give life, structure, and continuity. So custom, is being linked to the laurel tree. So finally, basically, he's concluding his prayer with a wish for his daughter's happy, stable, and prosperous and traditional married life. And he believes that customs and ceremony are not just empty, formalities or traditions. They are the foundations of beauty, of innocence, and he compares them with the horn of plenty and the laurel tree, which are both symbols of lasting richness and honor. So Lot of metaphors and symbols being used in this poem. I hope you have taken down the notes because you will find them useful in order to deal with both MCQs as well as with the 5-mark and the 10-mark questions, right? So I hope I've done justice to this poem. I've explained this in an extremely detailed manner, and I hope you will be able to answer any questions that come from it. I will do a couple of test papers on this, maybe sometime in December, second half of December, and that will give you an idea about how exactly to answer the questions that are asked to you in the examination. Thank you very much. Tata, bye-bye. Namaskar. As I said, the essays book and the grammar book for ISC are both available on Amazon. You just need to check it with my name. Both are all printed by Oswald Books, so you may find it easy to search it on Amazon. Tata, bye-bye. Thank you very much. Namaskar.